Hey guys, tonight we're dimming the lights and settling into a story that's equal parts ambition, absurdity, and what were they thinking moments. Grab your coziest blanket, maybe a cup of something warm, and let's float back to 19th century Canada, where a nation was trying to hold itself together, literally. Tonight, we're talking about the last spike of 1885, the dramatic finale of the Canadian Pacific Railway. It's a story of politics, promises, and a whole lot of, because why not, decision making. So let's ease into this like it's a train ride through the Rockies. Slow, steady, and with the occasional scenic disaster. The Canadian Pacific Railway, or the CPR as it's affectionately known, was one of those ideas that sounded great on paper. Let's build a railroad across a country that's mostly wilderness, mountains, and mosquitoes the size of small birds. Of course, the real reason behind it was less about adventure and more about keeping British Columbia from wandering off to join the United States. Because, nothing says stay in the Union like a 2,000-mile train track. The man behind this grand scheme was Sir John A. Macdonald, Canada's first prime minister, and a man who loved a good project almost as much as he loved a good whiskey. Macdonald had promised British Columbia a railway within 10 years of it joining Canada in 1871. And by promised, I mean he signed a legal agreement, probably while thinking, we'll figure it out. Spoiler alert, they did, but not without a lot of drama, delays, and questionable financial decisions. Let's start with the logistics because they're as entertaining as they are terrifying. The CPR was supposed to stretch from the port of Montreal all the way to the Pacific coast, crossing prairies, mountains, and rivers that had no business being crossed by a train. The Rocky Mountains, in particular, were like nature's middle finger to the entire project. But MacDonald and his team were undeterred. Mountains? We'll just blast through them, they said, because why not double down on the difficulty? The company tasked with building this monstrosity was unsurprisingly called the Canadian Pacific Railway Company. Its president, William Van Horn, was a man who took deadlines very seriously. Too seriously, some might say. Van Horn's famous quote, "We cannot wait for the frost to get out of the ground," sums up the entire attitude of the project. Frost? Mountains? Grizzly bears? Not a problem. Just keep laying those tracks. Now, let's talk about the workers because they're the real heroes, or victims depending on how you look at it, of this story. Thousands of men, mostly European immigrants and Chinese laborers, were hired to build the railway. The conditions were, to put it mildly, atrocious. The pay was low, the hours were long, and the danger was constant. Oh, and did I mention the explosions? Because there were a lot of those. Blasting through the Rockies wasn't exactly a delicate process. The Chinese workers in particular deserve a special mention. They made up a significant portion of the workforce, especially in the most dangerous sections of the railway. Yet they were paid less than their white counterparts and often faced discrimination. It's one of those ironic contrasts that history loves to throw at us, a nation-building project that relied on the very people it treated the worst. But let's not get too bogged down in the bleakness. This is supposed to be a relaxing monologue, after all. Let's float over to the more absurd aspects of the project, like the fact that the CPR was constantly running out of money. McDonald's government had promised the company $25 million in funding, which was a lot of money back then. But surprise, surprise, it wasn't enough. The company had to beg, borrow, and probably steal to keep the project going. At one point, they even tried to cut costs by reducing the quality of the tracks, because what could possibly go wrong with subpar railway infrastructure? Despite all the challenges, the project somehow kept moving forward. By 1885, the railway was almost complete. All that was left was the final stretch in British Columbia and the ceremonial driving of the last spike. This wasn't just any spike, mind you. It was a symbolic moment, the culmination of years of backbreaking labor, financial chaos, and political maneuvering. The location chosen for this historic event was Craigellachie, a small town in British Columbia that probably didn't expect to become famous. On November 7th, 1885, a crowd gathered to watch Van Horn drive the final spike into the ground. It was a moment of national pride, a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. Or as Macdonald might have put it, we did it, and only slightly over budget and behind schedule. Of course, the story doesn't end there. The CPR had immediate problems, like the fact that parts of it were still unfinished or poorly constructed. But hey, it was done, and that's what mattered. The railway opened up the West, facilitated trade, and helped solidify Canada as a unified nation. It also left behind a legacy of debt, corruption, and questionable labor practices, but let's not dwell on that. So there you have it, the story of the last spike, a tale of ambition, absurdity, and the occasional explosion. It's a reminder that even the grandest projects are built on the backs of ordinary people, often under less than ideal circumstances. Now let's take a deep breath, maybe stretch a little, and prepare to float into the next chapter of history. Because as we all know, there's always another royal disaster or political blunder waiting just around the corner. Good night, guys.